Christine, it's now time for another segment of Into the DCEU. This is part 7 where we're talking about Shazam from 2019. I got my copy right here. Did you want to give your review first, or would you like me to start on it?
I can start.
Okay, go right ahead. What's your thoughts on this film?
It's a good movie for once. It's like 100 points above all the other ones, that's for certain.
Is this your favorite of the DCEU movies so far?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean it by like 100 points over the other ones. Okay. It's funny, it's got a story, it's got villains that make sense, it's got characters that make sense, and it's about kids, and it makes sense.
This has on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 90% certified fresh rating and a 82% audience score. So people really enjoyed this one. It came out in April of 2019.
I think
what did you enjoy about it?
Well, one thing, I wish that they hadn't sworn in it. There's a couple places where they swear in it.
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, it's PG-13, so they can get away with a couple of swears.
I mean, if only I think lots of kids could have enjoyed this, but instead they're swearing in it, which was silly. That's the only thing I didn't like about it.
No, what did you enjoy about specific parts of
talking about it? Anyway, I think it's a great movie. It's fun for family, but unfortunately they do swear in it, which was, I think, a really dumb decision on their part. But they don't make smart decisions with these movies anyway. But I think it's really good. It's funny. The acting is good. The kids are fun. There's a story. It makes sense. I don't want to spoil it because a lot of people haven't seen it.
No, this is a spoiler review. This movie's from 4 years ago.
I know, but nobody,
so we're spoiling it.
People seem to not have seen it.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it at this point, just pause this section, cut to the next chapter, and then come back after you've watched it, and you can share your thoughts as well.
My thoughts are, it's good. I recommend it. Go see it. I went to see it with people who were unfamiliar with all of this stuff, and they loved it. They were really surprised what a good time it was. The other disappointing thing about it was the fact that the caterpillar never shows up again. We haven't seen him since.
No, he does show up again.
Well, he doesn't do anything.
Well,
basically at the end of the movie, they have a scene and it's supposed to lead into another movie that we never got. So
is it going to lead into another movie? I don't know about that.
This is the problem with these DC end scenes. They don't mean anything at all.
Yes.
They just come up with something and then they never follow through with it. So that's just shows their bad planning, I suppose.
No, they usually have a plan. The problem is they never stick to the plan, and also they keep having regime changes at Warner Brothers, and then the new management and new people come in with their own ideas. This is what we're going to do. They change, they course correct, they change the direction, and a lot of times it's still the same management. They release stuff, and then, people didn't like this, so let's micromanage and course correct the next one, and then plot lines get left hanging.
This movie
and never get resolved.
We haven't watched the James Gunn Suicide Squad and the second Flash are really the only 3 decent movies so far from DC.
Okay,
I like
James Gunn Suicide Squad hadn't come out by this time.
I like Black Adam a little bit, but this movie and James Gunn Suicide Squad are my favorite. The Flash 2 is also good, but this one is so far apart from these other ones.
Flash hasn't come out yet.
We haven't seen we haven't seen the Flash yet. No, but I mean this Shazam 2 hasn't come out yet. Has come out and we did like it. But not at this point. Yes. Those are the only 3 good ones.
Okay, so at this point, the only one you like is Shazam.
Yes,
okay?
It is so much better than the other ones. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. They actually hired a writer that could write finally. I don't know why this one is good.
Well, we're talking about, I try to give more information about it, and we're going to talk more about it, but right now, let's just talk about our reviews. What rating would you give this if you don't have anything more specific you want to say on this movie?
I give it like a 94. It's great.
Okay, excellent. I quite enjoyed this movie as well, so I wrote down a whole bunch of things that I enjoyed, so... Oh man, I wrote a lot of this stuff.
This movie is
this is a spoiler review.
I know,
okay,
but you don't need to say every little detail.
This movie, it starts off with a dark opening, and this movie is essentially, it has 2 major stories, so it's 2 different stories with completely different tones. They're both dark stories, but one is full of jokes and lighthearted humor and bright colors, and the other story is really dark and it's like, oh, this is a crappy world to be in. And then eventually the two stories combine, and then even when like the one character, the villain is the dark story, and then the hero Shazam or Billy Batson, that's the fun story. When they combine, even when the villain's not around, played by Mark Strong, who's great in this, it still becomes dark, but it's still full of lots of jokes. So it has a dark opening with the villain as a child. Thaddeus Savannah is his name, played by Mark Strong, who's great. It's one of the things I wrote down that I really loved in this.
He's great in everything.
Asher Angel plays the young Billy Batson. Perfect.
He's good.
Perfect
I really
job
love
on
the
this.
other kid though.
Yeah, the kid who plays Freddy.
He's the best. I
Yeah.
wish kind of he was the star of it.
Okay. Now this was all filmed. A lot of this was filmed in Toronto, and I recognize a lot of the places, so I enjoyed that as much. But that's just for me. It does have a sad origin story, losing his mom, but it just goes right back into the fun. And even later on, when they're dealing with that's a rough story. That kid had a rough time
These are
because
kids
he's
that
in
need
and
a
out
break.
of foster homes.
They really need a break, and they get one.
You get Jimon Hansu is back as the Wizard. This guy's in so many superhero
He's
movies
not in
now.
it very much though. in
Doesn't
this
need to
one.
be. Just the fact that he's in them so much. So we've seen him in Shazam. Later on, we'll see him in Shazam 2.
Yeah.
We just saw him in Aquaman as a CGI fisherman character. He was in Captain Marvel. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. This guy's in so much.
I wish we had more of the Wizard in this movie actually, because you don't really get much about him.
We get the 7 deadly sins represented as monsters. Love it. Okay. The color scheme in Billy's story, each of all the kids, like there's lots of bright colors throughout it. Okay, you see lots of bright Christmas lights and it's really highlighted. So the color scheme on this is great. But each kid is represented by a different color. So Billy has bright red, whereas Freddy, the other kid, he's really great in this. He's represented by a bright blue, like this. Darla, she's great. She's the 8-year-old kid, I think, and she's always
great.
associated with purple. Hector, who's the Hispanic kid, he's always got green on, or well, not all the time, but a lot of the time. So the color, they really do a good use of the color in representing each character. And then when they turn in, and then later on, spoilers, when they turn into the superhero version of themselves, that's the color of their costume. So that's why they did that. I didn't notice that before.
I don't really care about the costumes.
Great
myself.
jokes. I'm trying to try not to ruin too many of the jokes, but jokes were great.
And
I
it's
love
actually
it.
funny, and it's written well, and what the people say to each other makes sense. And they talk like kids, and they talk like they would.
The foster parents in it,
They're
they're
not in
really
this one
great
very
characters.
much.
But those actors are giving it their all. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of these superhero movies. You don't get big roles, a lot of dialogue, but they give it their all, and all the kids are great. Darla, Eugene, Mary, Hector, Freddy. Okay, there's so many references to the DC universe. So in this world, the superheroes exist. So Batman is real, Superman is real. So they got all this merchandise everywhere. We see Aquaman shirts. There's a Lego Superman. We see the Batarang a few times because Freddy's got one, which I don't know if Batman's going to come and take that from him or not. That would have been fun to see. We see a Batman t-shirt, Superman backpack. There's a Batman backpack.
Well,
like you see it in the
Freddy
school.
is
Some of the kids.
A fanboy.
Okay. There's a toy store scene which is just covered in it's not all DC
That's
stuff,
not what I liked
but
about
certain
the movie.
sections. No, I'm saying these are fun references. There's Batman and Superman action figures the kids playing with at one point, and they're fighting each other. That's a reference to BVS.
It would have been better if they just
Okay.
would have shot that.
There's newspaper articles about Superman that Freddy has in his room.
Well, Freddy is a fan of them, where the other people kind of haven't really accepted superheroes yet, it seems. A lot of the other people in the film they know what's going on, but they don't really know much about it, whereas Freddy is right into it.
Yeah, it's his thing, whereas other people are like, I don't care.
Well, they're kind of wary because there was a threat, they're not always good as they do talk about in Superman, right?
Yeah. I look at it as, in this world, it's kind of similar to in our world is some people are into this stuff, most people are not. So most of the kids don't have any of this stuff. But every once in a while you see a Batman backpack or a Superman shirt. You like the Harry Potter reference?
I don't remember the Harry Potter reference.
Okay. But we did talk about...
There was one, but I mean, that's not what I like about the movie.
Mark Strong as Dr. Thaddeus Savannah. Yeah, he's in a completely different movie, and he's just super serious and dark, and it's just...
As he would be.
He's the straight man, and he's just going hardcore at it. Okay, there is some things in this that like you wouldn't want to take to little kids. So Christine mentioned the language, but also at one point there's a lady, she melts.
Well, there's
I'm like, whoa.
One thing they don't have any blood in this movie.
No, but there's some dark stuff in it.
But there's some darker stuff.
The deadly sins look pretty creepy, especially to a 5-year-old.
They could have, just tweaked that a little bit, and it could have been for the whole family. I think that was a mistake on their part.
Then we get Mark Strong gets shot in the head with this blue light, and then he's got a blue eye. That's how he gets his powers there. That seemed to be a bit...
That's fine. I mean, kids could take that.
There's a great debate on flight or invisibility, which Office actually, that's a study that you can actually look up. That's been done many times, the flight or invisibility debate.
Which one would you like to have?
Well, that's the thing. Freddy says in the movie that everyone always says flight, because invisibility is creepy, but when people don't know what their answer is, they say invisibility.
I would say invisibility. I don't want to fly. It's cold out there.
Oh, yeah, it would be freezing.
It would be to be flying. I'd like invisibility, and then no one would bother me.
Okay, there's these bullies in this movie, and at one point, and they're always driving up in their giant truck, which says Dode on it.
They don't really get their comeuppance.
What's a Dode? Oh, they do.
Not really.
The truck gets destroyed. That's pretty bad.
They don't realize why. They don't understand why it does.
But their truck, I'm guessing that would have said Ford, and then they changed it and it says Dodd. I'm guessing that's what it is, but I don't know. No.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a Ford truck for sure. But even though these guys are bullies and they're way too old to be going to this school, Freddy just...
They all go to the school, though. It's a kindergarten to 12 school, it appears.
It's a school in Toronto.
They all go
I know
to
that.
it, which
I know that place.
I
didn't go there.
I mean, there are schools like that, but they're not usually in the city, right?
Okay. So Freddy's always mouthing off to them, and because they're just being bullies, and he's just like, nah, I'm just gonna throw it right back at them. He's flipping them off. He's swearing at them.
Where are the teachers?
Yeah, exactly. Where are the teachers? And if this is an inner city school, there'd probably be cops there or security there every day.
Show security at first.
But they don't go outside.
I guess not. Anyway, they're real big jerks.
Yeah, Billy jumps into that fight. We see a Toronto subway station. This scene's like that. With a caterpillar, it escapes the jar and it comes back at the end.
Yeah, and
visits Mark Strong.
I want a movie all about that caterpillar. What is he called? Mr. Something.
I don't remember.
I asked the other day. It's Mr. Something.
I had to look it up.
I like the look of him.
Okay. The Shazam costume is awesome. I mean, Zachary Levi does a great job.
He's really tall.
I can't believe they mentioned Rock of Eternity in this. Damn, this movie is comic book ridiculous. But they play into it because you don't... No, it is. It's completely ridiculous. They're talking about the Rock of Eternity and magic. Please stop interrupting my reviews. But they counter it with all these jokes and lightheartedness and bright colors. There's so many terrible names that they come up with for him because he can't say Shazam without turning back into Billy. Thundercrack, Thunderboy, Captain Sparklefingers, the Red Cyclone, Sir Zaps-a-Lot, Freckle Fingers, and I probably missed a whole lot more. There's so much stuff in this. I don't know if I could go on about this forever.
But it's reality based. That's what I was going to say. It's not comic book ridiculous. It's it's reality.
It's absolutely grounded in reality.
Yeah, it's not like Aquaman.
Absolutely. At one point, the Handmaid's Tale building is in the background. I think it's a subway stop or a streetcar station entrance. And they use it all the time in later seasons of The Handmaid's Tale. You see that in this. It's underneath the highway, which is the Gardner Expressway in Toronto. there's a big reference because essentially the story is big. Instead of so this kid, instead of becoming a full adult man who then goes on to try and have a career in New York City, he becomes a superhero and has to deal with it. So it's a kid in an adult body, and that's this story for this is taken. A lot of parts of the story are taken directly from the New 52 Shazam story, which was part of the Justice League comic, including how he turns all his family, all the other kids, they get Shazam powers. Just the kids, not the foster parents.
Should have given the parents too.
Nah, they're fun.
They're hardly in this one.
Those foster parents are so good. I like both of them. And they seem like such nice people. The Santa becomes a running gag in this movie. Shows up 4 times.
That's another thing. That little kids, it's not appropriate for little kids to see that.
Yeah, because it's a fake Santa.
Yeah, but I don't know. Anyway, I don't know why they put that stuff that would discourage people from bringing their kids to this movie. I think that wasn't very smart.
Now, one thing I think they did really well, I guess in the writers, is that when it comes to figuring out things, the characters figure out right away. Whether it be the kids or whether it be the villain. Because the villain, Mark Strong, he figures out that Shazam is Billy. Because Freddy gives it away.
Yeah.
And it's on the news, right? So he figures it out right away. And then the other kids are able to figure it out. And it just, none of this, he looks exactly the same. Or Freddy's just talking to him and then he's talking to Billy and no one figures it out. That's just nonsense. So they did a good job of that there.
Yeah, it's real dialogue. It makes sense.
Okay. The kids help Billy find his mom, and he gets to meet his real mom, and that was, this is some heavy stuff there. He goes into this, community housing apartment. It's pretty run down and meets his real mom.
The mom is the issue. She's not a good mom.
17-year-old who ends up with a kid. Whew. So
anyway.
it's a really depressing story. Like I said, there's a lot of dark stuff in this. Love the foster mom bumper sticker.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a foster mom. What's your superpower?
Right.
I love that. That was great. All the kid actors are great. Billy figures out how to hurt that all the way by bringing out the sins. All the weird doors, and then we get those crocodiles. I don't even know what that is. But that is a deep cut from the comics.
Instead of dogs playing poker, it's crocodiles playing poker.
That is a deep cut from the comics. There's a final confrontation at the Winter Carnival. There's a Hulk Avengers reference when one of the sins is slamming them around. That's from the Avengers. Not exactly the same thing.
I don't know.
And then the confrontation in the sky when Shazam and Zachary Levi and Mark Strong are flying around. Mark Strong starts giving them the evil villain speech. And he's just, what? I can't hear you like a mile away.
See, that's what I like about
That's great, because that's what would happen.
Yeah, exactly. And we have, other than Superman having great hearing, we have these superhero movies with these same kind of scenes, and you wouldn't know what the other guy was saying.
Okay. There's a Dragon Ball Z and Mortal Kombat reference when he does it's like, I don't.
Playing Mortal Kombat.
Okay. Yes, they were. Billy was able to outsmart Envy. Okay, and draw them out, and
creatures are very smart.
No, they're not, and so the kid was able to outsmart him, and that worked well. I thought that was good. At the end, they got a new secret lair because they wanted a lair the whole time.
We see that more in the second one.
They have a nice family dinner at the end. This really does promote family, but it's a foster family, and it's really good. It's a nice atmosphere in the house, and it's realistic because they're always yelling and the place is constantly a mess. And anyway, bet that house costs a lot of money. The end cafeteria scene where the family comes in and then Superman comes in, but you don't see his face.
I don't know why they couldn't just put Henry Cavill in there.
They apparently, some behind the scenes stuff is that they tried to do that.
Yeah.
But it was scheduling conflicts. And also probably the previous regime at Warner Bros. At the time, under Kevin Tsujihara. No, this was the AT&T crowd. They didn't want Henry Cavill in any of these things.
So mopey.
That's not why.
And they couldn't decide if you should have a mustache
but they did try to get Henry Cavill into it. They just had to use someone else. The fun credit scene with the Ramones song, I Don't Want to Grow Up. That was great. I really love that. Was funny. There's a mid-credit prison scene. That's where we see the caterpillar.
Yeah, and then we don't see anything else. I want to see that caterpillar in a movie. I want to see him.
Why are you so obsessed with this?
Because he's interesting. Anyway, but that's the problem with these. You don't believe. They don't have any credibility, these end credit scenes of DC, because we've seen other ones as well now, too, that really don't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Marvel ones are all very calculated. And
yes.
They definitely go somewhere, and it's important to see them for the most part.
Okay. That caterpillar is called Mr. Mind.
Okay, so the mastermind.
Because he's got all these mind powers.
Yes.
And telekinesis. It just apparently takes him forever to get anywhere because it's a caterpillar, right? There's also a fun end credit scene. Now I didn't read out all these things, but I wrote down 74. Oh, one thing I gotta mention. I'm not gonna say what it is, but the booby trap. Oh man, they kept making that joke and it worked every time.
Again, they could have just cheated a little bit and let little kids into this movie.
I think this works as a movie for teenagers.
It does, but I don't know why they went that route. Because it could have been for everybody.
Because it's funny.
I know, but
and
I don't know.
And it makes it more realistic.
They could have.
If you tone it down too much to make it too kid friendly, then it doesn't seem realistic.
The beer part, I think the beer part could have stayed like the beer part where they go to get the beer and then of course they spit it out.
Kids drinking beer and they're like, gross. Tastes like vomit.
I totally agree. I don't like beer either. Anyway.
Well, they're just drinking like the cheapest beer, probably a light beer too.
Well, it's American beer, so Lord knows.
Okay, I'm not saying anything on that. So I do have some behind the scenes stuff about this. Well, not very much about this movie. Because this movie, it came out at the beginning of April in 2019. But I saw it in February, a month and a half earlier. They did sneak preview screenings.
Oh. Because
the regime at Warner Brothers saw the movie. They really liked it. They believed in it. So they put it out in limited release. So in big theaters, just a couple of screenings on a Saturday. And that way, so some audiences could go see it, and then they would spread the word that it's really good. And it was really good.
It's good.
Okay, and that's why it has such a high rating.
So surprising. It's good.
I don't think it made a ton of money, but...
Again, it doesn't make sense what makes money and what doesn't. I mean, this movie is really good, and it didn't make that much. It's
a superhero movie of a mostly unknown character. Not many people know the character
Guardians
Shazam.
Of the Galaxy was unknown as well.
Exactly.
I think they missed the boat on this though. I think if they would have just tweaked a couple elements, it could have been like a Finding Nemo, which would have been appropriate for everybody. I think they really missed the boat on that. Although it's a really good movie, but I think they could have really knocked it out of the park if they just edited it down a little bit.
You gave it a high rating. On the internet rating system, I give it a best movie ever. Because it's so much fun. It's not my favorite of the DC movies, of the 7 we've watched so far, but it's number 2. It actually supplanted Aquaman as number 2. Now Aquaman for me is number 3.
It's like way up here, even farther than you can see compared to all the other ones, to me.
You're just so negative on these things.
It's good.
So, let's talk a little bit about Mustache Gate. Because we didn't delve into this too much.
There's no mustaches in this one.
No, this is going back to our big helping of Justice from 2017.
Maybe they need Zachary Levi. Could have
been
better.
I was reading up on this because much of Justice League was reshot. And I talked to you about how the studio executives
There's a whole second movie, right?
Yeah, but it's not in canon. It's not a sequel. It's just the same movie done differently.
Right, it's the same
with
one though.
Different footage.
Oh, different footage. Okay.
So when Justice League was being shot, the studio under the executives with Kevin Tsujihara were pushing to get this out for November. So I went on Looper and Esquire.com and to kind of familiarize myself with before the show. So on Looper it says the entire Henry Cavill Superman mustache controversy explained, and it's got a picture of him from Man of Steel with a mustache put on him.
I don't like mustaches.
Okay. And if you go over to Esquire, it says, from 2018, the real reason behind Henry Cavill's infamous $3 million Justice League mustache. and it's got the photos of him, which is Uncanny Valley of him in Justice League as Superman. So here's what happened. Justice League was shot, and Zack Snyder had principal photography on it, which is the main production, was pretty much done, and Zack Snyder had to step away from the movie because in March of 2017. Okay, but meanwhile, it's supposed to come out in November of the same year, so he had to leave because of his daughter, unfortunately passed away, and so it was a family tragedy. So he went away for a couple weeks, tried to come back. No, he had to step away. So they brought in Joss Whedon,
right?
You know, and they had to reshoot most of the movie. The problem was, after Henry Cavill finished principal photography on Justice League, he went to shoot another movie. It was called Normus or something like that. And after that, he came in. Was it Normus? Oh, some weird thing. So he had to have like long hair and a beard.
Oh.
So when he went to go shoot for Mission Impossible Fallout.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Mission Impossible Fallout with Christopher McQuarrie. He comes in with a mustache, and the director's like, "Sure, you can have a mustache, right?" There's no reason for it to have a mustache in that movie. It's just a look that he wanted to have at the time. Okay. So inside this, they're shooting Mission Impossible. They got it, but then suddenly he's got to go and do reshoots, which lasted a couple months, which that's a long time.
Okay.
On Justice League. But he's still filming Mission Impossible, and in one he has to have a mustache, and in the other he doesn't. So the director, Chris McQuarrie, for Mission Impossible says, "We'll just shut down our production. You guys pay us like $3 million, because that's how much it'll cost to shut down production for a couple of weeks, so that he can shave it and then go film Justice League."
Glued a mustache.
That came
on
up. That came up as well.
They're really good
So
at it.
Paramount, who's in charge of Mission Impossible, says, "No, you ain't shutting down our movie." And the funny thing was, it ended up getting shut down anyway, because that's the one Tom Cruise broke his foot on.
Oh.
Or jumping off rooftops there, if you heard that. So they had to shut down anyway. And the executives at Paramount refused to let Henry Cavill shave the mustache to go and film Justice League, because then it would take too long for him to grow back. And they didn't want to CGI a mustache or use a fake mustache.
People that make these mustaches.
Okay. And so it ended up becoming this big tit for tat between Warner Brothers and Paramount, these two multi-billion-dollar studios, right? And who won in the end? Paramount.
Yeah.
So that means Henry Cavill had to go back and film for a couple months of Justice League as Superman with a mustache.
Well,
and then they had to use visual effects to remove it.
I'm sure the Mission Impossible movie was better than this one.
And this movie becomes so involved in drama because not just Zack Snyder had to step away, Joss Whedon gets brought in, and then you got Ray Fisher on Twitter years later calling him out, saying how he treated the cast was terrible. Yeah, Joss Whedon. Here we go here. In the wake of Zack Snyder's resignation from the big budget superhero form, Warner Bros. And DC enlisted the directing experience of Joss Whedon, who had previously helmed Marvel's Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron. One of your favorite Marvel movies. Remember that?
I mean, Superman's not in the Justice League that much. I think they should have just recast him.
It's because he was dead at the time.
They should have just recast him.
Get this. With yet another creative mind in the Justice League foray, the studio agreed to 2 months and $25 million worth of reshoots. That's huge. A significant cost compared to a standard reshoot budget of $6 to $10 million and a couple of weeks.
It must have been really bad then, because what came out wasn't good.
Well, that's what happened is they had to reshoot most of it because Joss Whedon's like, we'll put a different fish. And then later, Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg, took to Twitter and labeled Whedon's behavior towards the cast and crew during the reshoots as gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. And this has nothing to do with the mustache.
Well,
he has to go film this. Warner Brothers even offered to pay for the visual effects to put the mustache back on, which is way easier than removing facial hair.
Okay.
Okay, and the executives at Paramount wouldn't budge at all. So it just ends up like there's so many things that were working against it, and the
See,
studio
but you know what?
executives kept saying, no, it's coming out November 2017, no matter how bad it is, so that they could get their bonuses because they knew AT&T was taking over the
Well,
next year.
The business daddy.
The business daddy,
Well,
according to John Oliver.
Listen, this is the only interesting thing about this movie. This movie, The Justice League, is awful. It is really, really bad.
Good.
And this is the only interesting about it.
Oh.
Don't see this movie. If you haven't seen it, don't go to see
Yeah,
it.
it's pretty bad.
It's really bad.
And then it became a big meme on the internet. I'm going
Oh.
to put this up on screen. This was used so much, and you can still find this stuff. It was hilarious.
Well,
Henry Cavill even got into the fray of it, and he was joking around about it too. It was hilarious.
well, they say that when you die, your hair continues to grow, so maybe he would have had some facial hair.
Not that much. However, it was suggested apparently that what if they had done it where Superman came back with a mustache and they just never mentioned it, and sometimes he has a mustache and sometimes he doesn't. No one ever addresses it. That would have been funny.
Interesting. You could count how many times you see the mustache and eat some popcorn at the same time.
Yeah, because we said that if they had done this as a straight comedy, Justice League would have been way better.
It's
Just throw in tons of jokes.
Seeing a beetle car, punch buggy.
Yep. Yeah, punch buggy. So, and that's part 7 of Into the DCEU.